Welcome back to our DIY Boomers channel. In this third video of our vanity build in our bathroom remodel playlist, we take a look at finishing the framing of our bathroom vanity. When our vanity is completed, it will be similar to the vanity shown in the inset, having double sinks and cabinets on both ends with drawers in the middle. Ours is different, being made of red oak, having a middle support, and the bottom shelf will be constructed of slats instead of being a solid shelf. The pocket hole screws will be covered with rear panels in the back of the end cabinets and hidden in the middle section behind the drawers. Here we're cutting 10-inch wide red oak stock to prepare for gluing up the vanity's end panels with dowels. While it's not necessary to use dowels for edge gluing, it does help to align the edges while also adding strength. If you saw the previous video on building the face frame, we mentioned having a problem with larger pocket hole screws splitting some 1.5 inch scrap red oak corner leg pieces that we tested with. I'm pleased to say that we had no problems this time with the smaller screws used on the 3/4 inch red oak end panels. More on that here in a bit. We built the vanity's top portion of the back frame that won't be visible out of pine. We planned from the beginning to use pocket hole screws on the softer wood, knowing that splitting the pine would not be a problem. We realized early on that trying to use dowels all around the interior perimeter of a glue-up would be difficult to fit together, so that made it essential that we use pocket hole screws in some spots. The rear and the bottom of the cabinet areas, along with the inside of the drawer compartment, were the ideal locations for pocket hole screws. Here I'm setting up the pocket hole jig and drill bit stop collar for 3/4 inch stock. This Kreg K4 pocket hole jig also has markers for aligning single or multiple holes to be drilled into the wood. Here again, you don't have to use glue on pocket hole joints either, but it does add strength to the joints when needed. Just align and clamp the joints in place for inserting the screws. Smaller clamps can be used on the face of a joint one at a time instead of using large bar clamps. It was just easier to use bar clamps on this frame. Clamps can then be removed. Check out our previous video, part 2 of the vanity build, for a detailed look at setting up and using the basic Rockler dowel jigs that we used. Here I am changing out the pocket hole drilling block to accommodate drilling 1/2 inch stock. As mentioned earlier, take a look at the previous video in the vanity build to see the problem that we ran into with pocket hole screws splitting hardwoods. Drilling pilot holes in the red oak and having the fine threaded screws available for the 3/4 inch oak stock made it possible to use pocket hole screws to join the interior 1/2 inch laminate to the 3/4 inch oak without splitting it. One of the challenges of this vanity build was to figure out the progression of the glue-ups. It takes a little planning to ensure everything fits properly with the types of joinery being used in each step of the glue-up. It's also helpful to run through the glue-ups in your mind before starting each one. This is a last check to avoid mistakes, and it helps you in laying out all the clamps, dowels, screws, and so on that will be needed. It's also critically important to maintain everything being exactly square. I showed checking your table saw blade and miter gauge for squareness in part 2 of the vanity build. After that, you should check for square at each step of the glue-up with a squaring tool of some sort. I had a framing square and a rafter square that worked well for me. Some of the smaller glue-ups can be done by just yourself, but it sure helps to have some assistance putting together the larger glue-ups, especially when using a faster setting premium wood glue like we ended up using. If you may have noticed, we did not apply glue to the back frame in this glue-up. We only clamped it in place on the dowels as a placeholder as we glued up the cabinet bottom and the side panels to the face frame. We thought that it would be too difficult to get everything glued up at the same time. So after this portion set up, we finished the gluing with still yet 2 more glue-ups. The next glue-up was to attach the back frame and bottom side rails to the side panels and the cabinet bottom that were previously attached to the front frame. last glue up was to attach the cabinet dividers. We were able to set them in last, even though the rest of the cabinet was already glued together. Since we wanted to use 1/4-inch dowels for attaching the dividers to the oak front frame, we did that by only using dowels in the front. We glued and set the dowels in the dividers, spread glue on the perimeter of the dividers, then inserted the dowels on the dividers into the front frame at an angle, then swung the dividers in place like a hinged door. Then we secured the backs and the bottoms of the dividers with pocket hole screws that we had already pre-drilled. So that's pretty much it for completing the vanity frame. Be sure to check back for the construction of the vanity doors, drawers, and the bottom shelf slats, as well as the rest of our bathroom remodel and more content on our DIY Boomers channel. As always, thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. See you next time.